All right. Welcome everyone to week 3 of the Alchemical Cabala. This past week, we've all been working with the current of the north below, which is the Hermit. And on the cube of space, we're going to see here where we're coming now is to the western face, right here. So we've been on this current, and we can only go one way here. We can't go up from here. We have to go towards the south on the below side. This is the only way this current will allow us to go on the cube of space. And so this week we'll be working on the western face of the cube on the below current. This is the key of the 15th tarot key called the Deceiver. It's lesson 3, cube of space. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 stages. That's Shakespeare from As You Like It. So the Deceiver key in the 3x7 layout, is that showing up for everyone?
Yes.
Okay. All right. This is the 3x7 layout, one way to read the Book of Wisdom. Okay, the Deceiver key is right here at the bottom. And Starlet was talking about the Strength key, which is above it. The Deceiver key in the 3x7 layout shows the first stage of spiritual unfoldment along the spiritual path. Its letter is Ayin, which means I, and it's associated with mirth. Note again that the bottom row of this layout shows the 7 stages of spiritual development. The western face of the cube is what we call the physical world or 3-dimensional reality. The current we find ourselves on now this week is called the Deceiver, sometimes called the devil. On the cube, it combines the foundation, which is the subconscious, on the western face with the western face, which is the 3rd-dimensional world. Now remember, one goal for us in Kabbalah is to get off the western face of the cube. And this is the same goal in the Eastern past, to transcend the perception that Maya is reality. So one of our first steps to accomplishing this is that we see through the illusory appearances of things and begin to consciously experience our guidance from beyond the veil of the perceived material world. The veil might be thought of as the curtains on the stage of life. This sounds like a metaphor, right? Curtains on the stage of life. What if it's not? So here's a quote by Rumi. He says, "This is not the real reality. The real reality is behind the curtains. In truth, we are not here. This is our shadow." He's talking about the 3rd dimension that we find ourselves in. In the old mystery schools, they used to perform plays to get the mystery teachings across, and from them we have master works. In Jewels of the Wise, we read of Ayin on page 163. Do I need to let someone in? Let me see here. Yeah, let me get someone in here. All right, coming back. On page 163 in Jewels of the Wise of Ayin, we read, "Judge not by appearance, for that which appears Judge not by appearance, for that which appears beareth small resemblance to that which is. Our fastest way to not be bound by appearances is to simply look at them and question the mind as to what is really behind these appearances. What we too often take for granted, those things that appear to us as things that we think we already know. If we are very, very honest with ourselves, what do we actually know about what we see? A good practice in Kabbalah is to ask the holy guardian angel what it is trying to teach us through the appearances and experiences that we are having, and then listen and watch with expectation of what is revealed to us. This is the way to deepen our conversation with the holy guardian angel, the one that actually knows what is occurring and why. The more often we do this, the better for us. And if we are sincere and listen and watch closely, we will receive perfect instruction. This is the way. And do you see the temperance key above the devil key now, or the deceiver? Is that showing up?
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the cube of space, on the western face, which is where we are, the deceiver key occupies the current west below. The west above key is the temperance key, who is in tarot the holy guardian angel. So we see him here as the archangel Michael, and on the western face he's above the deceiver. So you're probably familiar with like the Catholic symbolism that shows the archangel Michael and he's overcoming the devil. Have you seen this imagery?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in Bala and Tarot, we have this same, or similar, I should say. It's not, in Kabbalah, we don't look at things as dual in nature. We recognize the unity. You know, the first commandment, hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. So if we see the stances of the angel here and the shadow, his shadow, known as the deceiver, these are very similar. If you're familiar with Plato's cave, has everyone been exposed to that story or myth?
Yes.
So these are like the figures of the light and shadow on the wall of Plato's cave. I'm going to say this is later in the class, but I will make one interesting note for you. In all of tarot, the temperance key up here is the very first key of all the keys to actually show us. You see this little yellow path right here coming out of the water by his foot?
Yes.
And going up between the two mountains to the crown.
Yes.
The temperance key is number 14th tarot key. Is the very first key to actually show us the path. All right, moving on. In the twinkling of an eye, we shall be changed, says St. Paul. In tarot, we read numbers like we read Hebrew letters, meaning that we read the numbers backwards. So on this key of the deceiver, it's the 15th key, right? So we would see the number here is the power of the number 5, and it's operating through the power or the agency of 1. Is that clear to everyone? Don't get too hung up on this. Just understand that we read numbers from right to left, like we read Hebrew from right to left in tarot. Okay, it's one of the methods. So this shows the power of agency of volition, or Mars, operating through 1, the self-consciousness. Now, the fifth sphere on the tree of life is Mars. And if you memorize the simple tree, like I asked you, it's volition or action, right? One of the names in Hebrew for that sphere, besides Gevurah, which means strength, another word for it is called Pashad in Hebrew, which means fear or panic. This key is sometimes called the dweller on the threshold. And this experience of the dweller on the threshold is universal for everyone on the path of return. There's a spoiler alert. Knowing that doesn't make it any less dramatic or powerful an experience. Okay, just it does help to know it though. It will simply help you to know that this is to be expected so that one doesn't get too startled when they actually experience it. Remember, on this path, on Kabbalah, on the path of Kabbalah, we are mystics and we swim in the same waters that the psychotic drowns in. So we rely on the holy guardian angel to keep us above the waters. Like when Peter stepped out and started sinking into the depths and the master extended his arm to him to keep him from drowning. Know that this help is always available to you, always. And learn to trust more and more in it. The holy guardian angel is the being at the heart of the tree of life. This is why we see him or them on the middle path of the middle column of the tree, connecting the sphere of the moon, which are the waters of Yesod, to the sun itself and the temperance key. And again, I'll note that the 14th key is the first key to show us the path. The Book of Wisdom, it said that fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Another great statement. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. So the question is, do we believe in one creator or not? That's for yourself to ask. The devil shown here is fear. We tend to fear the unknown, often letting our imagination run wild, imagining worst possible outcomes. We're often like little children, imagining there's some monster under our bed, making ourselves a little personal hell with our anxiety and worries. Now, look back at your own childhood fears and how many of them now are just funny, right? They're humorous. As children, had we actually looked under our beds and shined a light under them, most often what we actually saw was some interesting things, some toys we had lost, or things we once cared about, and also some areas that needed to be cleaned up. That's pretty much what we find under our beds. This is the exact same with us and our subconscious. That's why we see the strength key over the devil key in the 3x7 layout. Bring that back. If you need to see that, there she is, right above the devil key. So what it says here is the answer is controlling our lower animal nature is always love. Love is always the way. All right, so here's a very powerful exercise received from the Book of Wisdom that you can do to clean under the bed and exercise some monsters that might not serve us anymore. Please understand that if you will do this exercise, you will help way more people than just yourself. And here it is. It's said in many traditions that after one dies or goes through transition, they review their life. If that's a universal practice, or even if it's just a teaching that many traditions promote, that we review our lives on transition, why should we have to wait until transition for that kind of wisdom? We're perfectly capable of reviewing our life right now. If you practice this, you will have amazing insights and find a beautiful response from your own higher self, the Holy Guardian Angel, in assisting not only you, but countless others through the valley of the shadow of death, fear, and anxiety. So just like we've been doing our nightly retrospections during the day, this week, I know it's a busy week and you got a lot going on, but sometime this week, when you have a spare 30 minutes to an hour or two for yourself, I would like you to simply work with intention through this particular exercise. And what you're going to do is you're going to start right where you are, and you're going to review your entire life. It doesn't have to be super detailed, obviously. But I'd like you to go back, starting with this year, review the year. And if it's too difficult to go year by year, then do it in increments of every 5 years, or even go to the nearest whole number and go back every decade, at least decade by decade by decade, till the first time you can recall. And then, so what you're going to do is you're going to consciously connect to some very specific memory or set of memories from each year or yearly increment of your life, and recall them and really kind of feel and see what you went through and where you were and what life was bringing you and how you were feeling about it. And just make a conscious connection with it. Make a mental note for every memory of that year or decade. And then I want you to note and recognize and acknowledge how you were loved and cared for, no matter what was occurring to you. Something has always looked after you. Something has always looked after you, and even now, here you are. Really acknowledge specific events and specific occurrences as to how you were cared for, and make a conscious effort to give thanks to the being that has supported you and always supported you and always been there for you throughout everything. Also acknowledge the places in your life that you didn't fully honor yourself, and send yourself love and compassion from where you are now, with no condemnation, only compassion. If you find it difficult to extend forgiveness or compassion to yourself, try to extend the same love and understanding and compassion to yourself as you would your own child or someone that you care for very deeply. If you will do this and go back, all the way back to before you were born, is incredibly powerful exercise, because it acknowledges the truth. And the truth is that we are always loved and supported, and we always have been, always. Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. In the story of the fall from Eden, the fall came from eating of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. On the return to Eden, we eat from the tree of life, which allows us to reintegrate ourselves into our real wholeness. The tarot keys show us universal challenges that each soul must experience and master in our own evolution. The beauty of tarot is they also show us how to deal with and master those challenges or obstacles. so that they become our strengths and stepping stones. So one universal experience of being human is the fear response, right? We get it. We're born into these bodies by default, and they're built in. They're built into the animal instincts of the bodies that we get. That's perfectly fine. It's just part of the package, and it's part of things we have to grow through and master. But we are more than these bodies. And as we evolve, we operate from that which is more. And on the higher levels of our being, as we represented on the tree of life, the 7 levels. So note in the body how it feels when one's really frightened, right? Often a feeling of dread or is in the pit of the stomach, right? That's where most people get a fearful response. It's that fight or flight response, and physically it's like an adrenaline dump from the adrenal glands in the physical body. So looking further at the key here of the light bringer, right here in the gut area, you see this? We see a red equal arm cross, and above this is basically we see the sign of Mercury, right? The Deceiver, we see the character on top of a one-sided facade of a cube. He's showing his full hand with the sign of Saturn on it, saying, all you see is all there is. This is in contrast to the Hierophant or teacher key, who shows us with 2 fingers open that there's always more to see. Not all is revealed. There's always more than meets the eye. This key shows our states of consciousness that believes the story and the hype that we were told when we were born into this world. The state of consciousness here has become so identified with our characters on the stage of life that we have forgotten that all of this, as they say in Hinduism, is Leela. It's the play of life. One hint shown on the key for how to deal with this is the symbol Mercury at the gut level. So we know attention and focus is how we evolve through this. Recall last week's abdominal breathing exercise where we were fanning the spark of yod in our gut. I hope you'll take a few moments from time to time and do that breath exercise for yourself to help you center, to help you light up the center of your being. It's that part of us that needs to be engulfed into flame. And that flame is shown right here. You see? It's being lit up. And what it's doing is that flame will break down and integrate those shadow aspects within us. That's why you see the sign of Mercury there right at the abdomen. It's showing us the way out of our personally imagined hell. It's also showing us how to integrate and raise the masculine and feminine aspects within ourselves. That's the red arm cross and the 2 characters here. So that we stop projecting these desires and fears that we have into the outer world. The more we can stay present with those energies in ourselves and stay with them and fan that divine flame for us, the faster we transform and reintegrate those energies back into ourselves. The path of Ayan, the Deceiver key on the tree of life, connects Hod, the intellect, to the sun. It's basically how the unregenerated intellect perceives our creator. Now, what do we mean by unregenerated intellect? Basically, what we mean is An intellect that doesn't perceive a power or intelligence greater than itself. So we live long enough, life will do that for us, right? It will humble us. And we will recognize that there is a far superior intelligence and being than our own intellect. This is real humility, and it's also inevitable. So it's best for us to acknowledge the limitations of our intellect and trust in our Creator. The sooner we do this, the better for us. So again, I'm going to reiterate the super awesome great news is that our Creator loves us. Loves, 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 loves us. This can't be stressed. Has anyone memorized the 8th statement on the pattern on the trestle board? Has anyone? I look forward with confidence to the perfect realization of the eternal splendor of the limitless light. So here's a jewel of a quote from Mr. Jason Lauderham. And he says, look until you see. That is the key. We must keep looking until we see. In addition, a quote from one of my best teachers who says, we see what we look at, not what we look for. What this means simply is, if you really want to see something, hold that image in your mind's eye and hold it there and keep holding it there until you see it. Look until you see. It's that simple. Too many people are just way too passive when it comes to our attention and our own vision. Why? Because it takes effort. It takes effort on our part to hold the mind on only the things we choose to see. It's just way too easier to let TV, social media, mass mind show us all the imagery we want or it wants. We must learn to be highly discerning about what we choose to see and hold in our consciousness and our own vision, because that's what will appear for us. If we don't do it, the world is more than happy to fill it with endless images and to sell us something, usually with fear, to help control something. So when we see through the appearances of things, we see light, the source of joy and real laughter. This can be a bit heavy. So just remember how good it feels to laugh like so hard that your stomach like hurts and you're like crying, how good that feels, right? Like if we could each just laugh like that once a day, we'd probably live to God knows how long and have way less stress, right? Paul Case wrote that the priests of Egypt would wake up each morning and wash their hearts with laughter. So if one is experiencing a lot of fear or distress in their life, a good practice is to put on a comedy, something that will genuinely make you laugh. What it does is it dissolves the laughter, the vibrations of laughter come from yourself. They dissolve the vibrations of fear. My wife and I watched The Water Boy about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's Adam Sandler. It's hilarious. His mother kept him isolated from the world and tells him everything that she feels insecure about and threatened by is the devil. And this is exactly what the world does. Exactly. And we all know this, and that's why it's funny, because it's true. Has anyone ever seen the movie, the classic by Ray Bradbury, Something Wicked This Way Comes? Anyone? Well, it's not like a must-see, but it's a pretty good movie. At the end of the show, a mysterious shadow carnival comes to town, and it gets pretty heavy. And at the end, there's a child and he's pretty distraught. And a wise old man there, he tells him, he's like, look, you've got to laugh. You've got to laugh. And he takes him back to the heart of laughter until he sees through the darkness and the shadows. So that's one function of this key. Meditation this week on this key. Don't be surprised if you have experiences along these lines. When we do this, when we laugh from the gut of our being, we can feel the star of our being dissolving those patterns of fear and anxiety. The star is our real being. And we always feel much lighter after this experience. The master said, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be filled with light. Ayin is the eye and called the renewing intelligence. From the Book of Formation, the 26th path is called the renovating intelligence because the Holy God renews by it all the changing things which are renewed by the creation of the world. Again, in Jewels of the Wise, Ayin on 163, we read, judge not by appearance, for that which appears beareth small resemblance to that which is. And in the Book of Tokens, it says of Ayin, have you not also read the eye of the Lord is in every place? And David saith, if I descend into Sheol, thou art there. Simply, the eye of awareness is all present. On the key here, just looking at this, note the gaze of the self-conscious aspect and the subconscious aspect of our being in this key. Do they appear awake? Do they appear to be aware that the chains around their necks are so loose they could simply and easily take them off their necks? Or they could even do this for each other. Just imagine if they were doing this for one another. Imagine those characters removing the chains from each other's necks and really see that. See that this week when you nightly meditations, as you're seeing the key. See it happening. In summary, working with this key will often present to us our own shadows and the collective shadow that we must learn to see through and dissolve and burn away and reintegrate back into ourselves. When we learn to integrate those shadow aspects, like the princess and the frog, we get our golden orb back. And by accepting what we rejected about ourselves, we transform those aspects back into our true nobility. This is why this key is called the renewing intelligence and key of regeneration. And we will always laugh in the end, no matter how tragic or how the story on the stage of life appears. The truth always ends in joy and laughter, always. And if you ever doubt that, look at children and how they come back into the world. So this week, I want everyone to have a wonderful week and enjoy your nightly meditations with key 15. Please remember to write in your journal. And I want you to know that I am so very grateful for all of you. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, blessed week. And
Thank you, Eli.
You're welcome. The floor is open for any questions or comments. You're welcome, Margot. My pleasure.
That's very cute.
That's from the water boy.
Ah.
Yeah, she does a good job in that.
Yeah, I would think. Really fantastic actress.
Yeah.